Okay, today we're going to be talking about greater than, which value is greater than. So when we're given two different values, it's greater, which one will be greater than the other. So we have three things. We're going to decide which of the two expressions is greater, if the expressions are equal, or if the relationship cannot be determined from the statement. Then we're going to write an equation or inequality that shows our answer. If they're equal, we're going to write an equation, and if one is greater than the other, we're going to write an inequality. And then we're going to explain why our answer is correct. Key thing is to watch out because it does get tricky. So the first example, the statement that it gives us, gives us a statement that x equals 8. And then it says, well, which is greater, x plus 5 or 3x plus 2? Well, for this one, since it tells us that x equals 8, we're just going to substitute 8 in for x. So since x equals 8, we plug it in, and so we have 3 times 8 plus 2, and we know that 3 times 8 is 24. We add 2 to 24, and that will give us 26. So when we substitute 8 in for x, we get 3 times 8 plus 2, which is 26. And then we do it on the second one, which is x plus 5. So here's our x plus 5. So now we have 8 plus 5 because we're saying that the value of x is just going to be 8. So we get 8 plus 5, and we know that 8 plus 5 will give us 13. So when we look at this statement, well, 26 is obviously greater than 13. So since 26 is greater than 13, that means 3x plus 2 has to be greater than x plus 5. So when we substitute our values in, we get 3x plus 2 is greater than x plus 5. We'll do this the next one together. So it says our statement. The statement we're given is y is less than x. So y is less than x. So the value of y has to be less than x. So if y is 5, x is anything larger than 5. 6, 7, 8, 9.5, 22.3, 600, 8 million, anything greater than y. So then it says, which is greater, x minus y or y minus x? So when we look at this, we just have to say, well, what do we want y to be? So now we're going to look at, if we say y can equal 5. So if y is equal to 5, and we say that x is any number that's going to be greater than 5. So let's use an easy number like 10. So now we know that 5 is less than 10. So we have our value of y, we have our value of x. And now we look at our two statements, x minus y. So here's my statement, x minus y. Well, the value of x is 10. 10 minus 5 is equal to 5. Okay? So all I did was I substituted my 10 in for x, my 5 in for y. Subtracted. This is statement 1. So here's statement 1. And then we have statement 2. So statement 2, says y minus x. Well, now I put in y minus x. So here's statement 2. And I plug my values in for y. So this is going to be 5 minus 10. And 5 minus 10 will equal negative 5. So when we look at this, which one's greater, statement 1 or statement 2? Well, we know that 5 is greater than negative 5, so 5 is greater than negative 5. So therefore, statement 1 is greater than statement 2, which means my solution is x minus y is greater than y minus x. And this is my reasoning. So because if y is 5, x is 10, you're going to get this statement is correct. And you could use it for other numbers. You could have selected 2 and 16, -4 and 3. So any values that you select for them, it will work. So now the next statement says a is greater than 0, b is less than 0. Which is greater, ab or a divided by b? Try this on your own. Pause the video, take about a minute or two, work it out, and then play the video again. All right, so hopefully you had time now to answer this question on your own. So when we take a look at it, so we have a is greater than 0 and b is less than 0. So with our statement, a is greater than 0. What we're going to say is that a can be any number greater than 0. We'll say 10. 10 is a very simple number to work with. B is less than 0. So any number less than 0, we'll say -1. -1 is less than 0. Which is greater, AB or A divided by B? Well, let's take a look at these. So statement 1. Statement 1. We have AB, which means A times B. So when we take a look at it, 10 times -1. Well, what's 10 times -1? That gives us -10. Statement 2. We have A divided by B. Well, the value of A is 10. And 10 divided by -1 is going to give us -10. So at first, when you look at these, you're going to say that they're equal. That statement 1 is going to equal statement 2. But the question is that always the case? With 10 and -1, it works out fine, but what if I switch my numbers? And instead of having 10 and -1, I say my value of A is going to be 4, and my value of B is going to equal -6. Actually, we'll use an easier number to work with. We'll say 4 and -4. So we have 4 and -4. So if we look at statement 1 again, AB, so statement 1 is AB. Well, this is going to be 4 times -4, and we know that 4 times -4 will give us -16. And now when we plug in B, so this is A divided by B, well, this is going to be 4 divided by -4, and we know that's going to give us -1. Well, this time, they're not equal. This time, -1 is greater than -16. So -1 is greater than -16, but here, they were equal. So can we determine which one is greater? We can't, because we don't know enough information about A and B. So we can make both statements equal. I can make it when AB is greater than A divided by B, and we can also make it when AB is less than. So there's not enough information. So for number 2, we can't figure out what this statement, which is greater with the information we're given. You need to go back and replay that? Feel free to. When we look at 3, all right, take a minute or two to try to solve this on your own, and then we'll look at the answer. So pause the video, work it out for a minute or two, and then play it again. All right, so hopefully you had time to go through this and figure this out. So the statement says 2x minus 3 is greater than 7. Which is greater, 5 or x? So if we look at what we're given, so we have 2x minus 3 is greater than 7. Well, we can solve this to figure out what the value of x is. So this is our statement. So here's our statement. And now to solve this, the first step we would do is add 3 both sides. That's our addition property of equality. That crosses off and we're left with 2x. We use the same symbol, is greater than 7 plus 3 is 10. So 2x is going to be greater than 10. Then the next thing we do is we divide. So x is going to be greater than 5. And this is our division property of equality. It allows us to divide on both sides. So now the statement that we have, it says x is greater than 5. Well, which is greater? 5 or x? X is greater than 5. Okay? The reason is because any number greater than 5 will make this a true statement. So if I plug in 6, 7, 8, 26, that will make this a true statement. So x has to be greater than 5. So take a look at number 4 and try to solve this one. So which is greater, x or 2? And I'll show you a different way that we can answer this question. So which is greater, x or 2? Take your time. When you're ready, start the video back up. Alright, so hopefully you had time to work this out. Now, first statement is 10 minus 2x is less than 6. So another way that I could do it is I could plug this 2 in. So which is greater, x or 2? I could plug this in for x. So if I plug that in for x, 10 minus 2 times 2 is less than 6. So this is going to give me 10 minus 4 is less than 6. 10 minus 4 is 6. Well, 6 is less than 6. Okay, so now what we get here is that 6 is less. That's not a true statement because 6 is not less than 6. So therefore, we have to figure out what we're going to do next to solve this equation or to solve this inequality. So you can try either 1 or 3. So if you plug 1 in, so if we plug 1 in for x, so we would do 10 times 2 minus 1 is less than 6, which will give me 10 minus 3 is less than 6. And 10 minus 3 is 7, and 7 is less than 6. That's not true. Okay, so we know that 1 is not true. So if we try, instead of 1, we try 3. So if we try 3, once again, we'll do the same process. 10 minus 2 times 3 is less than 6. 10 minus 6 is less than 6. That'll give us 4 is less than 6, and that's true. So if we know that this is true, so if x equals 3 is a true statement, what do you know about x equals 3 compared to 2? Well, 3 is greater than 2, so therefore x is greater than 2. So that's my answer here. X is going to be greater than 2 because when I plugged in a number greater than 2, it made this a true statement. as opposed to when I plugged in a number less than 2, it made this a false statement. And we'll do this 5 and 6. So when you go to answer 5, take a couple minutes to try to work it out on your own, and then we'll answer it. Alright. And to solve this one, it says which is greater, 1 or x? So you can, once again, you can do this a couple ways. So you can have x can be a number greater than 1, 4. We can say x is equal to 1, or we can say x can be a number less than 1, like -1. Actually, since this, I'm lying, this gives us a equation, we want to solve this equation. So 4x equals 0. So the last one, if you go back and you look at number 4, this was an inequality. That's why we had a range of answers. Number 5, it's an equation, so we can only have one answer. So if we look at our statement, 4x equals 0. To solve this, you divide by 4. Divide by 4, that's our division property of equality. And x will equal 0, because 0 divided by 4 is 0. So now if you know that the value of x equals 0, so which is greater, 1 or x? Well, 1 is greater than x because x equals 0. Then number 6, take a minute to do it, pause it, work it out. Alright, hopefully you guys had time to work this one out. So what it gives us is n is an integer, which is greater, n or negative n. Well, what do we know about an integer? An integer is any positive or negative whole number. So since it's any positive or negative whole number, we have to try a few different numbers. So if we choose a negative number like -4, we can choose a positive number like 6, or we can choose 0. So we have 3 different options that we can be. So now we have to check all of our options. So which is greater, n or negative n? So n or negative n. Well, if I plug in -4, I'm just going to have -4. But for this one, I have -4. Well, a negative will give me a positive. So this will give me the statement that -4 is less than +4. So that means negative n is greater. If we plug in a 6, so we have n or negative n. Well, I'm plugging in 6 or a -6. Well, this time 6 is greater than -6. So do you see how now n is greater? And if you plug in 0, well, what you're going to get is 0 is going to equal -0, which is just 0 equals 0. So once again, with this one, we don't have enough information about n because it's an integer. It's that positive and negative aspect because it's n or negative n. So we're not 100% sure if it's going to be the n is greater or the negative n, because if it's a positive number, the n will be greater. But if it's a negative number, the negative n will be greater. So take your time and work through the next set of these questions.